Man Up, a program dedicated to inspiring and helping men live lives of heroic virtue. And now, it's time to man up.
Welcome to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. We are broadcasting on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. I am Joe Stopulos, and today going to have a reflection on the book War and Peace. Just finished reading it, had a wonderful experience with it, and wanted to share some of the things that I gleaned from it. Some of the things I wanted to share, some of the main themes that I thought were pertinent to the Catholic worldview and to living out as a man in 2022. Let's start in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. A happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. You know, I reflect more and more on the importance of fatherhood. I see it in my own children. Obviously see it in the lives of those around me. You see it in the product of kids that are now in their teens that I see, or kids that are in their 20s and 30s who have had good fathers, and what a difference that makes. And our call as fathers, truly to be selfless, to put down the things that are holding us back from being the best husbands and the best fathers that we can be, to be intentional with our children, to give them the love that they need, the protection that they need. I reflect often, with regularity, on my own fatherhood. On am I pouring into my children? Am I taking time each day, just some one-on-one time with each kid? Am I making sure they understand that I love them? Am I verbalizing that? Am I showing them that love? And then am I trying to be that example to them every day? Am I trying? And obviously I fall short. Clearly if I fall short and I have to get back up, I apologize to them. I apologize to the Lord. I get right. I move forward. And so a happy Father's Day to all of you. We're going to do a short break, and when we return, I will have reflections on the book War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by InterVisions Healthcare, empowering men and women to make the most informed, life-affirming decisions for themselves and their families. Learn more at ivhcare.org, ivhcare.org. Thank you, InterVisions Healthcare, for supporting Iowa Catholic Radio. Thank you to our business partner, McDonald Imaging Solutions, a family-owned business that offers branding apparel, promotional products, and provides an online customer store for business and organizations. 515-276-2587, McDonaldImagingSolutions.com.
Thank you to our business partner, Big Red Q Quick Print. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. BigRedQ-Des Moines.com. BigRedQ-Des Moines.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Marr Security, a Catholic-owned family business providing security solutions for homes and businesses since 1953. PerMarrSecurity.com, 515-244-5660.
My help comes from you. You're right here.
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. I am Joe Stopulos, and today I am going to dive into the philosophy, the theology, and the lessons learned from the book War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I had the opportunity to chew through this one over the course of the last few months, and there's enough in here that definitely constitutes an episode. So, spoiler alert, if you have interest in reading this book and you do not want to know any parts of the plots or the characters, you should probably go ahead and turn off the radio. That said, if by chance you are not going to read the book, which I will recommend that you do, as you could probably assume at this point, even if you are planning on reading it, I found that given, if you have any idea in this book at all, it's got an enormous scope. It's quite a lot to chew through. It actually probably would help to listen to this first, honestly, to get an idea of what the themes are and who the people are. So, I mean, yes, it's going to be a spoiler alert, but that said, like, I'm already at the point where I just finished this book last week, and I'm ready to read it again. I think I'll get a lot more out of it if I pick it up again, just because there's so much to chew on. So I'll start at the beginning. Let me give you a bit about Tolstoy, and then I want to dive into some of the main themes. Again, I think there's the reason these books, these great works of literature, stand the test of time. The reason they're almost unanimously seen as a great book is because there's something deeper and more meaningful than just the entertainment value of the story. They teach us lessons. They give us characters who we then can relate to in our own lives and who we can fashion our lives after. And we find ourselves in a rut like one of them, or if we find ourselves in a relationship or a cycle of sin like a character in a great book, it can tell us something about ourselves. It allows us to know more about our own humanity and then to relate to these characters on a much deeper level, and then back to ourselves and our relationship with God and our relationship with other people. That is why the great books stand the test of time. That is why after the first time I read one, which was Tale of Two Cities, 6-7 years ago, I've come to understand why the great books are leading in so many of the institutions of higher learning, where they lead with the great books. These classical education, the idea of classical education going through the humanities. And again, I'm starting to understand that. So Leo Tolstoy was born in 1828, and he died in 1910. He led a pretty troubled life in general. I mean, he started in with tremendous amounts of money. His family was very wealthy. His mom died when he was 2. His dad died when he was 9. And so he was raised by aunts and uncles. And again, this is a reoccurring theme of anyone. I've talked in the past about how Thomas Jefferson and his wife Abigail were 1%ers, yet they saw so much death within their life of children and relatives. And she died at age 33. And by the time she had died at 33, she'd already had, I think, like 6 kids die and a husband die. And just you realize how blessed we are to live in 2022, where the chances of death of that early are just so slim because of the advances we've made with technology, with science. And so Tolstoy is raised in this environment. It's very difficult for him. And so the interesting thing is the parallels between Tolstoy himself and some of the main characters, specifically Pierre. So this book is about, to show you how little I knew about it, I had no idea when it was set what it was about. You, listener, even if you haven't read it, you might already know it's about the War of 1812. And Tolstoy had actually tried to write this book about the Decembrists movement, which happened in the mid-1800s, and ended up tracing that back to a movement before that, and traced that back to the War of 1812, which traced that back to the French Revolution. And he kept realizing in tracing history back that history in and of itself, that it's a sweeping movement made by hundreds of millions and billions of people, all acting according to their own free will, which creates history. And so this book is really his philosophical treatise on how history works and how determinism works versus free will. And so it does get super philosophical, especially the second epilogue is essentially just an entire treatise on time, on history. So it's super dense, and he would even say himself this novel was not a novel. It's not a novel. It's a work of philosophy that happens to have a story behind it. So I hope you're still listening and haven't gotten bored of tears with this. But again, the novel itself, the book itself is, it's a bear of a book as far as size goes. And because of that, it gives us so much of an opportunity to dive deep into the characters and the themes he's trying to get out. Again, Tolstoy he's a master. Some people consider him, he's often seen as the greatest author of all time when it comes to the novel format. And he only wrote 2 of them. He wrote Anna Karenina and War and Peace, but his mastery of language and his ability to weave all these themes in is unbelievable. So I want to get to some of the themes. So there are essentially 5 to 6 main characters. There's also 45 characters in total, and yes, the other ones aren't necessarily main characters, but they're tangentially related to them. And so you have to keep your eyes on all these people, and you can learn stuff from all of them. But essentially, the important things to realize are most of these characters are born into extreme wealth. These are the people who are the counts and the high society people, and then their children. And that's who this is all kind of seen through the eyes of. And Pierre, I'll talk mostly about Pierre. Pierre is, again, the kind of the Tolstoy character. And the first lesson that I get out of this is through the eyes of this character named Pierre. Again, keep in mind that we're learning about Pierre on basically page 2, and we follow him through page 1500, essentially. And he inherits the largest fortune in the history of Russia. He's basically, his name is Pierre Bezukhov. He's getting this giant sum of money, and all of a sudden, overnight, his dad, or his stepdad, dies, and he inherits all the money. And so overnight, he becomes fabulously wealthy. And he, throughout the entire book, again, you really do get to know him very well because it's so long, struggles with finding happiness. So he tries to find it in drinking. He tries to find it in women. He tries to find it in the Freemasons. He tries to find it in faith. He's just working so hard to find happiness throughout the whole book. And he struggles in all these things, and he's filling himself up with all of these worldly ambitions. So of all the themes that this one, to me, hits on that is so pertinent to what I see in my own life, when I see in society around us, the depression that we see around us, is exemplified through this character of Pierre. That here's a man who had everything the world would say you want. He had a beautiful wife. He had all the money in the world, all the political connections in the world, but he was not happy. And nothing could buy him happiness. He ends up joining, he's in the burning of Moscow, happens in 1812. He gets arrested, and he's thrown into a prison. And in all of the writing, there's one character that comes in this prison that he's in. And this is one of the greatest characters, so I've read, in all of literature. And he's literally in 12 pages of this giant novel. And his name is Platon, something like that, Platon. And his name is derived from Plato, if you're wondering. And he is a peasant, a very poor peasant, who is basically on the floor of this jail, essentially, where the French army has taken these peasants, and Pierre is now thrown in with them. And Platon is a simple soul. He's completely impoverished, and he lives from moment to moment. He is comforted. He has an unshakable faith in God and in goodness. And so Pierre has none of these things at this point. He constantly is reciting these Russian proverbs, and he often forgets what he said moments later. And he even gives some of his small rations to a dog that is there. That's the kind of simple this man is. He sings, he sleeps really well. He's very content with his lot in life that he has. And he prays that he should rise like a loaf of bread each morning. So he also has a sense of humor as well. By all accounts, his life has been just a set of horrible misfortunes. And yet, unlike Pierre, who is, again, as rich as you could be and given as much power and honor as you could have, this man is content and approaches hardships with levity. Even in the hell of captivity that he has, he manages to be merry, charitable, and faithful. His philosophy is simple. This is a quote from the book. The great thing is to get on with other people. So he treats everyone, regardless if it's the French captors or Pierre or the dog or whomever, he treats them all as God's gift, as he sees God in everyone he meets. During his captivity, he says with joviality, he says, the beggar's bowl or the prison hole, you have to take whatever comes. So, unlike Pierre, Platon never dwells on his problems long, and he has this stoic detachment, this very monk-like detachment, which is impervious to despair. So he has this level of detachment from all the despair around him that allows him to be free to be happy. So this is another quote. He enjoyed no attachments, no friendships, no love in any sense of the word that meant anything to Pierre. Yet he loved and showed affection to every creature he came across in life, especially to people, no particular people, just those who happened to be there before his eyes. He loved his dog, his comrades, the French. He loved Pierre, his neighbor. And despite all of this, Pierre says that he feels that Platon wouldn't suffer a moment's sorrow if they were to part. And so through the simple philosophy that he has, he possesses peace of mind and soul that Pierre has toiled his entire life to achieve. Pierre seeks all these answers I mentioned, the Freemasons, in numerology, love, and bodily pleasures. But so long as he sees the life as a riddle to be solved or puzzle to be figured out, he realizes that nothing can fill the hole that plagues him. It's very Augustine like. Our hearts are restless until they rest in thee. Pierre is trying to fill his heart up with all these things. And the point of this book, it drives it home, because you've been with these guys since page 1, and you are with them in the struggles, and you're learning so much about them as they change through. And then to have this one character show up and just explain him how you can live a life and find happiness, it really brings it home. Platón becomes a spiritual mentor of sorts to Pierre, showing him that if he wants to find peace, he must think less and appreciate more. That happiness comes from within us. That a man in maximum luxury, the most exorbitant luxury you could find, could be far more despondent, could be far less happy than a peasant soldier who is, by his will, against his will, thrown into prison and festers in a shed, and he's dying with shackles around his ankles with his dog. And finally, Platón reminds us that our perceptions of the world can make hell of heaven, but also heaven of hell. In other words, we can color the world how we choose to see it. And this is a theme that I have thought for a long time, that how we view the world is oftentimes what we get. If we choose to be the optimist, if we choose to see the good in other people, that will be reflected in our demeanor and in how we live our lives. So that's the first major lesson I think that we can get out of this book, is this detachment and finding contentment with what we have. The next major theme is love. There's love throughout the book, and some of it's, a lot of it's really bad. These marriages don't last, and people are marrying for the wrong reasons. They're not marrying for true love. But the characters who do, in the end, find contentment, find it through love. And it's only through love. So the character Andrew, and he is very just rigid, and he believes he's always right and all these things. And it literally is until he's dying that he realizes that the only thing that matters is love. And it's just a beautiful scene. It's this beautiful scene where he finally realizes that all that mattered this entire time is love. Another thing that we see through Andrew that is a really unique view. It's hard to describe this unless you've read the book, or you're going to read the book. And I feel like the guy who's like, you got to read the movie, or you got to see the book, you got whatever to do. Sorry, see the movie, read the book, or else you're missing out. Which again, I think you are. But there's a scene where Andrew, this guy who's very very rigid, he knows the way, he knows what truth is, all the stuff. He's into the battle, and he's lying on the battlefield, and for the first time in his life, he experiences beauty. So he's on a battlefield, basically dead, bleeding out, as he grabbed the flag and ran it straight into Napoleon's army, and he was dropped, and they thought he was dead. And as he's lying there for the first time in his life, surrounded by all these dead bodies, but his eyes looking up to heaven, up to the sky, where he just sees a normal blue day with the blue sky and the clouds going by, and he realizes that moment, that beauty, the beauty of the world, the beauty around us, so you can see it anywhere. And he realizes this on the battlefield as he assumes he's about to die. So he has this existential moment while lying there, and everything kind of goes quiet, and all he concentrates on is the blue sky and the clouds, and how beautiful creation is. He never took a time to think about it, never took time in his life to spend a moment to reflect on the beauty of God's creation around us. Again, something that I've obviously taken to heart here with my family. We do lots of trips to the mountains. We do lots of trips to hiking and camping, and I can't get enough of it. And again, I kind of had an Andrew moment when I first went to the Rocky Mountain National Park about a decade ago, and I haven't given up since. My good friend John Leonetti, he just got bit by the bug. He had a speaking engagement up in Maine and went to Acadia National Park a couple weeks ago. He calls me up. He's like, "Man, you are dead on. This stuff is incredible." And yeah, it is. I mean, the beauty of creation is all around us. And so I can sit outside in my house and just watch the trees and look at the beautiful sky. And we can have moments like that. We don't need to drive all the way to the mountains to do it. Yeah, I do obviously think that's really great. But you can have it right here outside of your back porch. You can just look out in the street. You can look up in the sky, and you can see God's beauty everywhere. Corollary to that, the horrors of war. Tolstoy, again, being the master writer he is, he brings you into these characters, and then he can just rip your heart out, because he experienced war firsthand and the horrors of war firsthand, and he was he was very much against war and all of its kinds, and he uses this book, and it's not heavy-handed by any means. It's not over and over again talking about the horrors of war. He just brings you into a character, and you love this character, and you're cheering for this character, and then he just very frankly describes how their face was blown off, or how they were, just maimed by war, and it just grips your heart. And I know this from a lot of my friends who have gone to war, how they come back and they understand that we should never go to war. If it's ever avoidable, it should be a last resort. And if ever, I know some people who have become completely against it in all of its forms at all times, because of how horrible they've seen firsthand. Until you're actually in it, you can't know just how terrible it is. And obviously, war changes you, and for Tolstoy, it clearly did. And he uses this book to show us just how terrible war can be. Lastly, last thing I drive home is this book is, again, it's about 1,500 pages, or 1,200, 1,500 pages, depending on the one you get. It's a bear of a book, and throughout it, people are changing. Their philosophies are changing. Their relationship with God is changing. Their relationship with other people, they're all changing. People can change. And again, this is not just some story. Tolstoy had a pulse on humanity. I actually was in conversation last night with a buddy about how I've changed so much in the last 10 years. I've actually had this conversation a couple times. In my marriage, in my as a father, even politically, how much I've changed. I used to be one way, and the more I read, the more I look at my views. I'd like to think I have an open mind on this stuff, right? And I think that sometimes, I am absolutely, my convictions that I once had are strengthened as I read and as I listen to opposing views. But at the same time, oftentimes if you've got an open mind and you realize, here's another way of thinking about it. I know in my own life, I've seen that happen a lot. So make sure that you are the same way, that you're seeking ardently the good, that you're praying to God for wisdom, and that you have an open mind, that you are, now, as G.K. Chesterton said, don't let your mind be so open that your brains fall out. But I think having a discerning mind, or one that's open to ideas, that's more important. I mean, you don't have to switch with the wind. That wouldn't be good. You got to have convictions. But understand that you need to be open to ideas and open to having those conversations in whatever it is. And I think that's having a true liberal education is extraordinarily important. That's something that in my own life I've tried to do. And again, I'm always getting better, I think. And, I've now had the realization that, at age 36, there's just not enough time in the world to read all the books and get all the stuff, and get all the information, have all the conversations I want. So, I'm trying to do the best I can, with the time I have and with the obligations I have with my kids. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the conversation here on War and Peace. There's so much to glean from it. Those are kind of the main things I got. I've listened to other talks where other people have gotten different things from it. Again, it's a tour de force, as it were, from a work of fiction, but very satisfying. It is, again, not an easy read by any means. It's definitely philosophical. It definitely takes time to get through. But in the end, I have so much now, so many characters, so many themes that I can reflect back on and glean from their life experiences and bring it into mine. So thanks for joining me. I'm going to head to a short break, and we'll be right back.
Iowa Catholic Radio welcomes Scotty McCreery with special guest Allie Colleen.
Give myself 5 more minutes.
Sunday, July 24th at the Iowa Event Center Ballroom.
I'm in between Friday night wild and quiet Sunday morning.
Tickets and information available at celebratecountry.org.
World's a time for a perfect kiss.
Sponsored by Ball Team.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by the Sarah Vocations Ministry, including the St. Sarah Club of Des Moines and the Sarah Club of Council Bluffs. Sarah is an apostolate of the Worldwide Catholic Church dedicated to fostering and supporting priesthood and religious vocations. Sarahans strive to accomplish their mission through prayer, fellowship, and service to the bishop, priests, sisters, and all in religious formation, and in doing so to increase their own holiness. Learn more at joinsarah.org, joinserra.org. Thank you, Sarahans, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
My help comes from you. You're right here, put in
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. Thanks for sticking with me today. I swear I am not trying to become a book review, radio show, podcast. That's not my intent. I'm just, if you can't, hopefully you can hear it in the sound of my voice, that I get pretty excited about these things. There's just so much goodness and truth, and it's obviously a world that is new to me. You know, I shirked my responsibilities as a man and as a human of actually reading and diving into things like this for the better part of 3 decades. And so now that I'm playing catch up, I'm obviously invigorated with these ideas and these truths that, you know, I've been discovering them kind of slowly here in my 20s and 30s. And it's like, man, these guys had a pulse on this thing, you know, over 150 years ago. And so, you know, I'm it's just being we're just finding different ways to say it today. But these are timeless truths. The idea of detachment, love of neighbor, love of other. These are truths that have been talked about for generations. But we, the Christians, standing on solid ground, need to continue to preach the gospel. If we don't continue to preach the gospel every year, we're only one generation away from losing it. And so it's incumbent upon us who have these truths, right? So we're the ones who these truths have been passed on to, and especially in a culture like America today, where a lot of people haven't heard them, haven't gotten to live them, haven't had an opportunity to see them lived out. It's incumbent upon us to take these lessons, take these virtues, this way of living life in accordance with God and His will. It's incumbent upon us to share it with others. And so, again, I think these books just obviously speak to my heart. Hopefully they speak to yours. And we can go out and be that difference. We can go out and show the love of God to neighbor and this way of right living as well. So thanks for joining me today on Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. I am Joe Stopulos. It's time to man up.
Man Up, inspiring men to live out their call to holiness.